So, you know, Lee was actually the one thing in Kylie's life that was stable, and he was a great dad. Lee was truly actually her foundation, her rock, and she clinged. You can see in the pictures that I've given you, and when she was with Lee, like she had a smile on her face. She laughed. She makes you laugh, and now she struggles to even, you know, find a smile herself. So for being affiliated, as far as I am very active with Gates Recovery. I try to go to at least one of their drop-ins or to the Thursday meeting in Gates once a week. It's getting close to the time of the ride, so it becomes more sketchy. But this week we went to the East Rochester, and then we made it to Gates. But the Gates was actually closed by the time we got there. They'd shut things down. But Gates Recovery is a great organization. They're doing things that nobody else is doing, which is awesome. I believe that all of the groups now are actually finding a way to blend, and Stephanie is doing her thing, and you know, even Gates Recovery they're taking on a different area. Recovery, they're actually servicing, you know, in the physical side of things. So we're not as involved with recovery as much as I used to be, but because Gates Recovery, we're really donating all of the money from this year's Memorial Ride. We're actually donating to Gates Recovery, so I've tried to become more tightly knit with them. I don't know if you saw the RDC protest against RDC.
No.
This was put through Gates Recovery, but basically RDC was the ones that distribute the fentanyl. And the CEO was fired and is doing jail time. So he actually, and they got like a $10 million fine.
Right.
And so we did a big protest, because it's not 10 million sounds like a wow, but it's nothing. And what I said in one of the interviews there was, you know, 10 million in jail time, that's good, but it won't bring my son back. I'm not sure exactly what RDC, the letters stand for, but RDC actually is it's in the pharmaceutical. They actually distribute to different pharmacies, and actually they were caught distributing opioids. I think in the last 4 years, it just expounded. So instead of having however many $1 million that were distributed in 2012, in 2017, it had quadrupled the amount, something to that effect. And so basically, where it was going was not. They didn't log in the way they were supposed to. They didn't keep track of where it was going and what it was used for. So they were found guilty of their log to not be accurate, not up to what they had agreed to be, and that's how they were found guilty. And I think that, I'm trying to remember her name. She's the DA for Monroe County.
Sandra Dooley?
Yes, Sandra.
I'm going to see her tomorrow night.
Oh, she's an amazing woman, and she fought hard and she succeeded. She was actually at that same protest that we spoke of. She gave me, I think we were doing a radio program on Rochester Free Radio with Gates Recovery, and Sandy was there, and she actually gave me her phone number and says, you know, you call or text me if you ever need anything. And I said, I will, and you do the same for me, because literally that's how we will win the war, is if we join arms and we make an unbreakable wall. So she's a great person, but RDC was found guilty, and so RDC is actually, like I said, they fired the CEO was actually fired, and he will do, I think he's doing 2 years of jail time, and RDC has been fined, I think it's 10 million. The ironic thing was, at least the interim, I don't think he still is, but who replaced the CEO was the CFO, which to me was just like mind-blowing, because how can you be found guilty for, you know, so many $1 million you spent more than 3 years ago with no way to show where it goes? So you're the CFO, and we're going to appoint you to take the position of the CEO who was found guilty? How did the CFO not know? So unfortunately, we live in this world. The politicians, they tell you one thing and then they do another. And that's the same thing with the big companies and the farms, especially the pharmaceuticals. especially. Okay, I think what's caused this epidemic, I think it's just basically all together. I think that the world that we know, being with the computer, you can actually, with the computer, you can have a wife sent from wherever, Thailand to your house. You can do it, and that's a joke, but literally you can actually do anything from your own, couch on your laptop. And I think that social media is a cause. I think that if I can leave in code. We actually, this isn't even social media. This is actually on my son's cell phone. We had Wayne County Sheriff Department actually open it up, and they actually were able to see his text log and actually read the text logs, even if he had deleted them. Basically, he would have heroin brought to him, to his house. He was texting, and people were they were in like a battle. Like they would actually say, no, like I can do it for $8 a bag, and then he would say, like I found $8 a bag. Well, I can do it for $6, and I'll bring it to you. And believe me, this is good stuff. You talk to your friends, see, and they mark the bags. I don't know if you're familiar, but they'll mark the bags. So like if there is like a devil on the bag, then you're like, if it's a red devil, like that's what I want. Or no, the blue dragon, that's way better because so-and-so OD'd on this. He didn't die, but he OD'd, and he's a heavy hitter. So if he OD'd on that, that's what I want because it's real stuff. So basically, I think that social media, I think that the one to blame for the deaths, I would say, is the fentanyl, but that's the deaths. I don't think that that's what has increased the heroin use or addiction. I think that's causing the deaths, and the reason it is because how cheap it is. But I think that the heroin use, I think that it's the way that our pharmaceuticals has really put it so deep and heavy into the public. I've had a lot of surgeries. I've broken a lot of bones. What they told me, one of them was they're going to prescribe this, and you take it as needed, whatever. And it's basically an opioid. And like literally, before the big farms were actually around, we did survive. We got cut the same way as I will tomorrow. We had the same surgeries. My dad went through that. He didn't have an opioid, pain med, but they push them, and they didn't just develop something that can ease your pain. They actually push it, and you could go in and you got the sniffles, and they're going to prescribe something, opioid, and that's an exaggeration, but literally, no matter what you go in for, they're going to try to push drugs that make them money, and I think that that's the biggest cause. And it sounds like I'm trying to push it on them that's what killed my son. They started that. They didn't kill my son. My son used heroin, which was heavy in fentanyl. That's what took my son. But the reason he was using heroin is because he could not afford, like none of them can, to buy pain pills on the streets. You can do it for a little bit, but then when you realize how much it's taken out of your wallet, you go to something cheaper, which would be heroin. And then the guys that are making this heroin or selling this heroin, they're actually cutting with fentanyl because it's way cheaper. The heroin that the kids are using now, or adults for that matter, are using now is really so little actual heroin, if none at all. It's fentanyl. They're all shooting up. I think that there are only a few ways. One is actually to stay in group. I think first of all, we need beds that would actually house a detoxing individual. They need to be in not 2 weeks. 2 months would be minimum. I think that you're looking at, it should be 4 to 6 months. Somebody should have a bed when they detox. And it's not the physical pain that they have in that first week or week and a half. It's not that. It's the mental pain that takes forever to go away, if it ever does. You talk to a recovering alcoholic, and he'll tell you that it's a lifelong. I have a very close friend who lost his son to a heroin overdose. He celebrated yesterday his 27 years sober, but he goes to AA. He doesn't go to the AA meetings as much as he did, but he goes. I would say that being in groups, once you go through the proper bedtime, when you get out, you stay in groups. Heavy in the beginning, like very heavy in the beginning. You have to go like weekly, if not nightly, to a meeting. You got to talk to people that are going through the same thing or have already been in your shoes. And so I think the group is the most important thing, and I think to abstain is another key one. You don't need to be surrounded by people who have never used. You need to be surrounded by people who have used but are not. They're clean. And I think that to abstain from everything, any drug will help you make bad decisions, and that includes alcohol. And my son didn't do that. The ones that you see that are clean and have stayed clean for 5-6 years now, they abstain from everything. Okay, so for some of the things that are being done that work and things that are being done that aren't working, I think as far as things that are working, there are jails that basically if you get picked up for heroin, buying heroin or use, they put you into a jail that has like groups that actually help you detox, and actually it's still, you're still in jail, but you're in jail that is actually working to detox you and actually put you on the right track. On the negative side, there's way too many that aren't doing that. They're just putting you in a cell just like the guy next to you who who beat his wife or whatever, any other thing that they would be going to jail for. I think that's helping. I think that as far as what isn't helping is the amount of deaths that are caused by heroin overdose. They're not meeting their mark. So we can't basically have the beds that we need here in Monroe County if we don't know how many have passed from an overdose. So there's different. Chris Collins, actually, I had an interview with Chris Collins on CNN, and the way he put it to me is, or on CNN, is we're going to fight the battle. We're just going to keep battling it the way we're battling, and we will win. And my retort was, if we fight this battle, we're not only going to continue to lose this battle, but we will lose the war. We are losing. We are losing even now. The pendulum has stopped its swing better than when my son was alive, but not swinging the correct way yet. If we keep fighting the way we're fighting right now today, we will continue to lose the battle. So I think that there's good happening, but there's still a lot of bad happening. As far as what Rochester can do to try to help this battle, help it go the right way, I would say, that's a tough question. I think there's so many things, but I think the task force is a great start. I think that we need to put more funds into that. We joke, actually, Chief Jim and I were joking how the amount that was given for the raising of the lake level, 300 million, I believe, was given. To the epidemic that we're speaking of, 250. I have not seen yet anybody that died from the raising of the lake yet. So last month in Rochester, there were 14 deaths related to it was heroin overdose. And again, I think the media has given so much attention to the raising of Lake Ontario. They've kind of broke off. I talked to, trying to remember, I think it was Amanda on the phone last week, and basically said the same thing. It's really one of the things that can solve this problem is to do away with where people look down on any heroin use or whatever. If the stigma doesn't get killed, then we won't win this war. And the stigma, it can be fixed by you and me, word of mouth, on the streets, whatever. But I think the big one that will help us is media. What you're doing and what Channel 13 is actually doing. They're looking at a series that they're going to be weekly talking about the epidemic. And I think that's what will change this battle. But again, the 14 dying last month, that's a big hit. For the Marchman Act, I believe I would be for that, because I think even before I lost my son, I would have been for it. We actually tried several times to get him in, his mom and I, and actually push him when he was still to the point where he didn't like Suboxone, number one, which I do understand because that's an opioid, basically taking place of an opioid, but he didn't like to us push him in patient till he got to that point, which is cool. When he actually made it so that this is what I want to go into inpatient. So like we talked about with this paper. But before that, every night we wondered if he was going to be found dead in the morning, every night. If his mom and I could have done that, I would have paid. I would have sold my soul to pay for my son's treatment. So that the amount that the insurance, like they are the driving the bus here. And if that act was passed, they're not driving the bus. It's going to cost me money, and it could be like a 30-year loan, but it's still, my son is here. So I would say that I would have been for it, and I would right now be for it.